Well, this is the beginning now of the conference phase. We had a lot of fun last night. I hardly ever laughed as intensely as I did. My laugh beast really came out in spades last night. Today, I would like to present some summary kinds of remarks to let you know what's going on from where I sit. As you know, we have our headquarters in Lotus, which is a sub-hamlet, which means it's not even anything. Up in the hills, it's about 45 minutes from here, up toward Lake Tahoe, about halfway up there. And originally, the office of Rational Recovery was in a motorhome. Lois and I moved into a motorhome and did some moving around to be present where things were happening. Then the office moved into our house and the dining room, then it moved down into the basement, and now at this point in time there's been a real crescendo, which I'll discuss in more detail, a crescendo of activity and events that's forcing us to move into an office in Placerville.
Is that another geographic, Jack?
Yeah, another geographic move, and I suppose that my laugh beast will come right along with me and ruin my life. Right. That will happen, I don't know when, maybe a month or two. But there have been a couple of trigger events triggering the new activity that we have. One, of course, was when the small book went to Delacorte, and we had a round of publicity back in April, and the calls and letters and requests for media interview, people publishing articles about rational recovery. We're now really into the mainstream of media. The media still often doesn't quite know what to do with us. The media is still under the influence, so to speak, of traditional ideas about chemical dependency. And one example, I think, was the Good Morning America thing. We had a dialogue on a Monday morning. Jane London and I talked on TV in front of a few million people. And the next day, in spite of the fact that it was quite a very tame discussion, there was a flood of calls that ABC then felt that they had to respond to, and there was not exactly a retraction, but like a recognition that something wasn't quite right, and they couldn't really put their finger on it. What they failed to perceive, of course, is that this struggle, this philosophical conflict now in the professional community and in the population is a story in itself. So they're still in one persuasion, one style of thought, and they're responding to one wing of the argument, and feeling uncomfortable enough the next day to be able to feel obliged to say something. I still don't know exactly what was said the second day, but it was something to the effect that there had been a lot of callers who were unhappy with the fact that we had presented an opposing or alternate point of view. So those things are happening. And the second trigger event was one day about 2 or 3 months ago. We received in the mail a document from the Copyright and Patents Office, Federal Copyright Office, giving the service mark Rational Recovery to Jack Trimpey. Now that seemingly mild event was actually a critical thing that happened. Many of you may not be aware that there was some pushing and shoving and struggling over the use of the expression rational recovery that went on for a couple of years. There was one outfit in Florida, for example, that was representing itself as the Rational Recovery Organization. And when people would see either me or anybody else in the media, many of them would call an 800 number, and this Rational Recovery, and he said, gee, I saw you on television, and I say, well, how can I help you? And it's one of these very difficult experiences. So that is a thing of the past. We do have the trademark, and the rapid growth of the organization has led us to split Rational Recovery from the Self-Help Network, which is what this is all about here, and a conventional corporation, which is called Rational Recovery Systems. Rational Recovery Systems was the original name given to self-help, the whole operation. At this point, we have a need for a corporation that can act efficiently and administer programs and do things in a very efficient, effective way. That's Rational Recovery Systems Incorporated, and it owns the service mark. So this is a kind of a bicameral or two halves of the clam structure that we're beginning under, and we're learning as we go, as it proceeds. There is a manual now. This is not a trigger event, but it's a very important thing that we now have codified our experience over the last couple of years into a presently 62-page document, and this is available out here at the tables. Please get a copy. It is $20, and yes, there's a charge to it, and it includes the updates and periodic additions. Each year there will be some, maybe quarterly, maybe every 6 months. We don't know yet. We'll see how that goes. But it's a fluid document and loose leaf binder so that we can continue to learn as we go. There's going to be very little written in stone about rational recovery. A few things like this is chemical dependency. We have a unique approach, and these things are hopefully pretty permanent features of what we're about. So the structure is now present for us to grow. The group formation has been phenomenal. Way back here in the back, you have a question?
I think to hold you up, but I'm lost on your main point, and that is what happened in the structure. Do you have two corporations now?
Yeah, there's Rational Recovery. Last night we signed the Self-Help Network as RRSN, which used to be the HSOF organization. What we've done is dissolve the formal relationship with the American Humanist Association, which is our host here. We're dissolving on very friendly, most friendly terms, I think.
Although not quite yet.
Oh, we are going to, yeah. We signed the papers last night, and when they are submitted, then there will be the dissolution. So it's a way of getting the nonprofit activities separated from a corporation that has the service mark and can administer the for-profit functions, like the licensing of activities, the administration of group homes, residential treatment facilities, and other functions that are appropriate for that kind of a corporation. So in the traditional, see, we're kind of copying in a way what's already there. This is not something that's brand new. In the traditional, the present system, we have an organization, Alcoholics Anonymous, which would be equivalent to the self-help network here. And then there's an entire billion-dollar industry, which is a conglomerate of very loosely associated organizations, hospitals, clinics, referral networks, and all that are for-profit. Very, very clear healthcare industry function. So that would be, in essence, where Rational Recovery Systems Incorporated is positioning itself out in the healthcare community. The group formation has been phenomenal. We have a list that you can all get while you're here. There are presently 450 groups. They all have different geographical city names. In North Stockton, South Stockton, suburbs of Chicago, and all that. The group is probably, we look at it from time to time, and it seems to be about 5% error, negative error. Out of that 450, there maybe 5 or more percent are what we call internally phantom groups. In other words, they started up, they didn't quite make it, or they were going along, and now somebody moved, the coordinator moved, and never checked in with us. So we've been carrying the number, and occasionally we give people a volunteer and give them a number that's either disconnected or somebody else's home or something like that. Thus far, it's been unavoidable to have that margin of error in our posting of lists because we cannot call every week and say, are you still there? The other error in the list is the 10% of positive error. In other words, there are 10% of there's a 10% that are not even on there. They're in some stage of progress, organization, in the process of forming. We used to carry asterisks and still do on a number of them, but many of the groups that are actually there are just simply not posted. We renew the list about once a month, and quite often by calling to check and see if there's a new group in South Bronx or something like that, we can fill that in. So, in essence, what's happening is at the office is that there's a growth of requests, inquiries for information that are depleting the finances very rapidly. The self-help network has been largely supported by the Jack and Lois Trimble Fund, and which was fine at the beginning. There was not such a volume that we now have. Presently, we're sending out 50 to 100 envelopes a day. And if you add that up in terms of postage, materials, printing, and staff time, we have 2 employees in the office. They're out at the table at the moment, unless they're in here. Oh, here's one, Elaine. This is our staff person at the office. She answers the telephone. She's the pleasant voice who Lois or Riley don't answer. That's Elaine. Riley, I think is out.
Yeah, he's at the table, Jeff.
He's manning the table. So the outgo can be seen as like $100 a day to respond, to pay the phone bill, to do all these things. We want very much to have a separation of the Rational Recovery Systems and the nonprofit, and we want the nonprofit to become self-supporting. Right now, we don't know exactly how that can be, but I'm saying here, I hope it becomes self-supporting so that it can stand on its own financially. One way that it can definitely begin to do that is by sending money from chapters. It would not be a chapter dues arrangement, but if there are excess funds over and beyond what is collected when the hat is passed around, this would be very helpful in offsetting the expense of having a national organization that is moving very rapidly on the problem of irrational addiction care in America. Rational Recovery Systems is plural. lot of people ask why systems. Very briefly, we live in a very complex society with many social systems. We have an educational system, a prison system, an eviction care system, a political system, a media broadcasting system, and a blah, blah, blah. All those systems are there. The job of rational recovery systems is to deliver, in a way, it's kind of delivering RET as an agent of social change. It's gone beyond the interpersonal helping aspect where RET, which is a fine form of common sense, a very potent form of common sense, has been shown to be effective as a therapeutic relationship or a therapeutic clinical phenomenon. And rational recovery systems delivers rational ideas on a platter to social systems. For example, the last prison issue was delivering some RET on a platter free of charge and says, here, you can do this. We now have, for a while thereafter, for first time out, we're having 1 or 2 prisons a day begin our yard groups. The administrations of prisons now have a fact before them, and we're now getting requests from administrations and asking, we need more information. As a matter of fact, the only person who was invited here free was the Corrections Director of Community Resources for California. He called in just the other day. I said, look, just come in and see what we're doing. That'll answer your questions about what the program is. These are significant events in our development when major social institutions now are coming and asking us, hey, what do you have? We're hearing about it. We want to investigate it. We want to explore it. And we think it might be good for us to hop on board and start doing some rational recovery. In 1993, we're going to have training available, and the training will be connected with the certification program that's already in effect. This conference, by the way, will meet the certification requirements for both the coordinator and specialist categories. There are slips that are available at the table. Lois has a bunch of them in their packet right here, so there they are. When you apply or in order to complete an application that is on file, simply send the slip in, fill it out, slip it in, send the slip in, and record 10 hours, which is the entire clock hour requirement. During 1993, we're looking forward to a series of regional training events on the East Coast, in the South, and the Great Lakes, in California, North and South. And they have this available to reach the professional community and the coordinator population, and people who want to come out of general interest as well. We'll be having a conference planner probably, and they'll be very well organized. And at this point, we do not have the specific locations, the regions figured out, and we're waiting to hear from you. Right before we began here, somebody came up and said, I would like to have training in our area to get a real get-together of people from the community, all walks of life, professionals and non-mental health people, and to have a training thing. And so that's how we will decide where our regional training will be. So that is a significant addition now to what is going on in rational recovery is our training. In the certification, we have a new category. Lois and Vince Fox and quite a few others in rational recovery now are educators. I rescued Lois from her profession in rational recovery, got her out of teaching, and I did a good thing for her.
8 hours a day for 16.
Yeah. unrecognized, heretofore unrecognized resource. If we think of rational recovery systems now, the plural thing, and here we have a whole educational system, one of the most sensitive places where knowledge is imparted to society. And we've been getting calls in the last few months, things like, did you know that there was an intervention in my family that took place in the principal's office? Yes. Little Johnny went to school and said my dad drank a six-pack of beer on the weekend. And we were summoned to the school, didn't know exactly why, but we ended up in the principal's office. And we were explained that alcoholism is a family disease, and we had better start attending the local AA meetings, and that little Johnny needs to get into Alatot and start figuring out the unrealities of life. This is a very unfortunate thing. There's a very sophisticated information machine in place in the public school systems. One of our upcoming issues of the journal will follow the pattern. We'll pick an issue for each journal, and it'll be the education issue. And at that time, I hope to have submissions from any of you and other places depicting the picture of what's going on in the schools. And then with that, as we have in the prison system and some others, then approach the people in responsible positions of decision making and make an offer that would be difficult to refuse, to help out by giving an alternate point of view. Another issue coming up is the professional acquiescence issue. It's already titled, and we're waiting for a few more manuscripts on it. We find that even when rational recovery is moving ahead quite rapidly, breaking new ground and all that, there's a difficulty with professional people who know very well and say that they know very well that there's a legitimacy in rational recovery, and a big problem with the exclusivity of AA become acquiescent as a matter of they think their self-interests. So we're going to address this issue and help people to become more authentic representatives of their professional values at their places of work and in their positions in the community. So there's much more yet to come as the calendar keeps flipping by. And we are excited about the prospects of the future. One of the future things that I'm looking forward to, and it should be quite fascinating, is in the back of the small book there's a questionnaire. Questionnaire is a study, it's a data grab. It's my expression for it. We got a lot of people who put the book down and said, yeah, I'll mail this in. I would like to be part of the study. And it asks people a little bit about their personal viewpoint, philosophical orientation, what kind of a substance abuse problem they have, what they did, what they have done thus far to help themselves with it, and did you attend AA, or have you been in AA programs, and if you found that unsatisfactory, how come? Very simple questions. And the results, what happened in November of 1990, I think it was, 1991, was it 90 or 91? We went in Harvard, we ended up in Boston, that was in 90. Some Harvard researchers showed an interest in this study in progress, and took over the research duties of tabulating and interpreting the data. And that's great, put that off of our back, because we're researching ourselves, and it would be very good, much better, essential to have outside researchers. We have a sample with preliminary results. They're going to be presented at another conference in a couple of months. But an early peek at the data shows some interesting, not necessarily the kind of a outcome thing that would prove a whole lot. I caution you before I say this, and I'd like to say some more on that note. But let me just tell you the statistics. The sample generated was not large. They disqualified a large number to get a sample that was objectively sound. We had 133 respondents who remained in the sample, and 72% were male. That may be a pattern that is recognizable in our groups. Of these 133, 89% had previously been to AA. We're not too surprised at that. That's all there's been. And 72% had discontinued AA. A few of them, in other words, were still involved. Of these now, 49% discontinued or objected, primarily because of the spiritual, whatever that word means, because of the spiritual basis of the 12-step program. 12% objected to the 12 steps themselves, something in the 12 steps that troubled them, bothered. I don't get the powerlessness part, I don't get the parasite, whatever that is. And 13% objected to the disease idea. 27%, a large number, objected to the idea of powerlessness, surrender, powerless. And then another 13% just simply felt they had outgrown. They'd gone beyond the need for it. All of them had read the small book, of course. Slightly more than half, about 55%, had attended RR meetings subsequent to reading the small book. And of the total sample, and this is a sensational number with less than sensational meaning, but 91% are currently sober. Now, I've said for many years, for a long time, I'm frankly disinterested in research that compares AA with RR. And here's why. When you start looking at numbers like this, it would be easy for anyone to say, well, the baseline in the traditional program is 15%, and our program saves 91% of people's lives. Now, this is the kind of thinking that people are used to. It's the horse race error. It's like here are two organizations in the self-help business, and one's now way ahead, 91%. This is silly and needless and pointless to ever do that, because that would suggest that this would be good for anybody, which is, it's not good for everybody. And it would suggest another subtle idea that programs are somehow responsible for keeping people sober. And that when sobriety occurs, then the gratitude is toward the program. The credit is given to a program. And we're going to avoid these errors in rational recovery. In rational recovery, you just won't take credit, however we have to put it. We're not going to take credit for keeping people sober. On the other hand, we're going to very definitely exalt, if you will, not the nicest word, we're going to exalt the human capacity, the human competency that we observe in people who come through the program. We're going to say, look, the human being survives. The human being changes. The human being self-corrects. Isn't that interesting that a human being, once addicted, even profoundly addicted, given the adequate information, will resurrect him or herself? This is not rational recovery, which is simply a conduit for information. So the distinctions are meaningful, they're sometimes subtle, but they're clear. So to conjecture that we are a social panacea is just another one of those errors. Rational recovery is hard to really estimate the penetration of rational recovery into the fabric of American society at this point. But one thing that's interesting is that there is a flurry of activity going on that it seems to be coming out of the blue. Some magazines are publishing new position papers now regarding the disease model of addiction. The American Society of Addictive Medicine, in collaboration with the National Council on Alcoholism, now it's called National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence. I call it National Council on AA. To me, it's a front organization, the people that represent a pure, orthodox AA viewpoint. But at any rate, they, in collaboration with an identified branch of the medical profession, are promoting a new paper now that was composed by 23 doctors, and it took them 2 years to come up with a new definition of alcoholism. My reaction is simply, this is a lot of head scratching for 2 years by 23 doctors. And it also begs the question of why is it so difficult to convince the public that this is a disease? What is there that's so hard for people to understand that alcoholism is a disease, that it would take 23 doctors who specialize in alcoholism to come up with a definition that is easily understandable, and probably expensive, probably $3 or $4 million, that's my guess. They probably consumed an awful lot of cash in coming up with this new definition. These things are happening. We plan, I've mentioned to the board of directors, we plan to have a more unified voice in responding to this kind of thing when it happens. Instead of having articles in the journal that are simply one person's opinion or response or whatever, Rational Recovery is going to have a organizational rebuttal. We're going to distribute the responsibility for researching and critiquing significant publications to committees who will then have their work edited and say, here's what the organization of Rational Recovery makes of this kind of public education, really, is what they're involved in. So these things are developing. We have certainly a new crescendo. We have our certification program that is being upgraded. Our training is coming into being. We have a division of the nonprofit versus the profit. And many things are happening. I'd like to open this to discussion and questions right now. We're coming up on the point of having about 20 minutes left for questions. Kevin?
Who will be publishing the Journal of Rational Recovery? Rational Recovery Systems or RRSN?
We have an organizational chart. I can put a few out here, but it's in the middle. There's a dotted line between both. It's a publication that serves the readership of Rational Recovery Systems, yet is not a supportable. It can't be supported from within the organization. So the journal will continue under my editorship until we can get rid of it, essentially, and either place it into a funded position in Rational Recovery or even farm it out. I've talked to a number of people about getting more competent publishing capabilities. There's a group in Ohio, I think, So we're evaluating offers from small publishers to do that. Yeah.
Are you still wanting quarterly reports from groups?
Yes, and we have a difficulty. Getting back to the financial crunch, in order for us to do a request for quarterly reports would cost us $500. It takes about that much effort to do a mailing out to these 500 groups. It costs about $1 per unit to get it out. With our way of doing things, maybe another organization can do it for 75 cents or 60 cents. I don't know, but that's what it's costing us. So it's expensive. We're hesitant to do a mailing simply for the purpose of triggering another report cycle. We hope that people will just simply get into a quarterly cycle. We title it quarterly. And please keep us informed. It's very helpful for us to get a feel about problem areas. The manual was devised to try to answer questions and problems that we've learned about in the quarterly reports. Yes.
How do we get credit for attending these sessions?
There's a slip that Lois has right here, and just pick one up, and when you apply, or as a way of filling your file or your requirements, just turn the slip in, and
Just say you attended.
say you attended, and you will get the conference attendance. Yeah. Don.
Yeah, what's the deadline for publication for articles relating to the educational issues? A Mercy College project would probably want to get involved on that.
Lois?
I think we'll do that for the that issue. We don't have enough material, and when we get back, Jack's going to Canada for Ottawa for the Self-Help Conference. He won't be back until the 6th of September, so sometime between the 6th and the 10th we'll be pulling the journal together, and we can't do an education issue this time. So that should be in probably by the end of October.
I think the next issue will have a lot of conference reporting, particularly our board of directors meeting, and then probably have some other interesting articles. Okay.
From some of the comments you've made, you indicated that there might be something similar to like franchising and
We call it licensing. Now, franchising is what we studiously avoid, and we've paid our dues to some attorneys to learn that this is not what we're doing. It's not what we're about. It's licensing. We have a trademark. This, you might say, this is the prize. This is the name that gives us recognition, that identifies what we do. In the copyright papers, Rational Recovery, a little circle R or circle TM, whichever one's legal now, means that it identifies a particular kind of counseling in the field of addiction care. That's what it is. And then we define that very carefully. In essence, it means that it's a particular application of rational emotive therapy, addictive voice recognition training, plus general principles of R18. That's what we do. Rational recovery, then, is a thing that we're intending to maintain very tight control of, because there are a number of ways to lose a trademark. One is through the misuse, the other is through the non-use. If we do not use and protect the trademark for a 4-year period, there's no evidence that we have been. It'll be reviewed by the patent and copyright people. And if it's misused, in other words, if it is used to say an astrology group decides to say this is rational and we're recovering from something with astrology, if it's misused, then it loses its meaning. So there's a determined effort on our part that it will be used to describe what we are about what we're doing. The licensing now can extend to a hospital. We'll have a very interesting report later in the program. Not this, it'll be later on, of a hospital that has adopted the use of the service mark and is having a just an intriguing, fascinating, and phenomenal experience with the use of this approach in the hospital setting. It can be done that way. Other organizations may be using it for commercial purposes. Agencies who want to advertise, they can attract clientele using the goodwill that we are generating for the name Rational Recovery. So it's a protected trademark. Did that answer? Was there something else?
Partially, yeah. So are you encouraging treatment programs with similar approaches to get involved with the
No. He's asking, do we encourage programs who already have a similar and adequate approach to use the service? No, we do not. There are two ways that an agency who's already rationally inclined in doing RET and whatever it is, two ways that they can connect up. One is simply through offering a self-help group by providing a floor space and making sure the door's open for people to come in and hosting a self-help group. Then the other is through the formal licensing where they can call up the paper editor and say, we're going to run a half-a-page ad here. We have a rational recovery program that people may come and enroll in, as the hospital I mentioned is doing. In order to do that, the program will meet criteria. They'll have certain criteria met in order to be given the permission to use the service mark. And part of the agreement also involves a royalty that goes to Rational Recovery Systems Incorporated. So it's a trademark use license and not a franchise, where there's a lot of direct control, profit sharing, and all that stuff, like McDonald's and all that. Yes, Peter?
Well, you talked about the trademark for rational recovery, and there's a little, and the two organizations there, and there's a tiny little interesting story that what you're just saying triggered in my mind as you insight to that, and that is that the Rational Recovery Self-Help Network needs to license the term rational recovery, rational recovery system. I want to do things when you're writing articles of incorporation. One of the reasons you do that is because you send it to the Internal Revenue Service, and they then look at that, and there's a purpose statement in there. And the IRS says, oh yes, you are a charitable organization under 501c3. Similarly, our articles of incorporation for the National Recovery Self-Help Network say that our groups teach skills, including but not limited to addictive voice recognition and some of the principles of rational emotive therapy. And that statement is now a statement that we can submit to Rational Recovery System. And Rational Recovery Systems will look at that and say, yes, that is rational recovery.
Right. That'll be $1, please.
Somehow we need to raise that $1.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, presently, National Recovery Self-Help Network cannot afford the $1 a year license royalty. Where are they going to come up with it? Somebody just bought me a cup of coffee for $1. It's right up there. Over here.
Could this be adapted by universities, certified counselors, or other counselors have a choice of methods that we can take?
Rational recovery is presently on the curriculum of Harvard University, Tufts University, as the information about reality filters in to the educational environment. And Harvard and Tufts have figured out what's going on and telling doctors, here's the way RR approaches this problem of addiction. So yes, this will be, it is being taught by major universities. I heard from Cornell University wanting to publish this into their reference material, and that will create a demand for information about this. It will be researched and compiled, and you know how these universities feed on information. It's a continuous feeding on data and information. So we're very definitely in the information conduits in the universities, and this will mature as time goes by.
I'm new with this, but did you say that AA has a corporation like the one that are?
No. There's a loosely connected. Yeah, there are many corporations, many corporations, hospitals.
Okay with AA.
Well, yeah, they're associated in the sense that people get better in AA and then go to work in these corporations, and then make money. Going 12 step by step. This is the reality. What we're doing, we think, is a little more honest and saying, here, this is who the people are. We're not really a member of a secret organization where we have a double identity as professional people. I'm Jack, and I represent rational recovery ideas, and these are legitimate secular ideas in our public institutions.
The reason I ask is
Yeah.
that it would seem to me that the organization is large today, and there must be a tremendous profit out there, and there's money involved. And
You know,
I'm always apprehensive when profit is made, like United Fund,
Mhm.
money that's misused in that. What is the mechanism for the dispersal of any profit that might be made?
The profit corporation, it's like any other corporation. There are no obligations to do anything unless that were to be adopted. If there was some internal decision about that could be made. Yes, sir.
But the self-help groups are not formally associated with Rational Recovery Systems, Inc. Self-help groups are part of what we, it's currently a nonprofit organization. We're moving over to a slightly different nonprofit organization that will be charitable and educational. Since it is nonprofit, all the profits are used for supporting self-help network of that organization. This is a nonprofit. The Articles of Incorporation very clearly say that you may never, ever use the profits, any profits that arise for, they can't go to any individual. They must always be used for 501c3 purposes.
Right. Which is part of the protection. See, there's a potential conflict of interest for advisors who, for example, may have a private practice and they're helping a group out to learn how to do this themselves. And we want this to be clear that an advisor is not entering into a conflict of interest, so they will identify with something else. Over here.
Is it possible to get copies of the articles?
I don't know yet.
I have one copy.
No. The answer is no. They're a public document.
It will be a public document.
But you don't have any copies?
No, we don't.
The copy store is closed for the weekend, unfortunately.
It's pretty damn boring, I tell you
Well,
that.
you know what, Toby? Well, if you get together with me, I think we could, that would probably be all right with me. Realize that right now they have not been filed at this moment.
Yeah, I think they need to get filed. We're going to go ahead and do what we were planning to do. And it's a public document that you can get probably from us. I'm not sure how that'll work out. But, yeah. Way in the back, Mr. Flowers.
Here you go, Jack. Now, is this underneath the incorporation of RSN? Is that going to be also an outpatient type of setting, or is it just basically limited to the groups and to the hospital application?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Basically, on a counseling basis, a lot of the experience that I've had have been basically in 3 different settings, halfway houses, hospitals, or an outpatient
Yeah.
clinic underneath a working status. You've stated the hospital and basically the correctional society. What about the middle of the road, the outpatient for the working status?
No, I'm still not, can you make it a shorter question now?
Is this going to be applied to an outpatient basis, on an outpatient clinic basis?
He's asking about licensing those, Jack.
You know, you're wondering if outpatient clinics will be licensed?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, because I don't know if this hospital that is licensed is doing it, but they're certainly free to have an outpatient program that would also be able to use that mark.
And be licensed?
And be licensed, yeah. Well, using that license or any license that comes from Rational Recovery. Over here.
Yeah, we have 6 meetings in Denver that are currently at the Humanist Bookstore. Our telephone number for Rational Recovery is listed, which goes to the Humanist Bookstore. And the guy that started it there is the Humanist.
Yeah.
How is that going to be affected? Is that up to us, or is there
I don't see anything.
do we still have an affiliation with the Humanists?
Certainly. We are, this is only a dissolution of a legal connection. One difficulty, for example, is that we're headed to court. We have KDAC, which is the Coalition of Attorneys, and as we go to federal court with cases, that would mean that we are legally connected to AHA, which, they're not exactly responsible for what we're doing. Although in court they could become responsible for what we're doing, so they would like to see that severed. And so this is a mutually beneficial separation. The relationship, however, remains most favored organization. We're quite close, and last evening we could see the harmony, philosophical harmony between the AHA and us. Albert Ellis has a monthly column in their magazine. He publishes every month the Happy Humanist columns. And it's a very obvious